Wow. Lukaku was actually paid £46,000 per touch against Crystal Palace. Great work if you can find it. Not many can. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour. Essien! Drogba! Lampard! That could be the championship!
Greetings! Welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P, for what is another Chelsea match review, but more specifically, a tactical synopsis of Chelsea's performance against Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. But before I get into all that, please do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and once again, I want to let you guys know about my sponsors. They go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do, just hit them up. The link will be in the description. Okay, so Chelsea traveled to Selhurst Park and emerged 1-0 winners in the derby. And the goal scorer was Hakim Ramantata Ziyech. What a goal. He actually had two. One was offside, but he did find the match-winning goal late in the second half. 1-0 Chelsea. In this match review, we're going to be focusing on three things as we normally do. We're going to be looking at wing-back play, full-back play, and playing players in their proper position. What is the demise when you don't, and what are the benefits when you do? We're also going to be looking at Chelsea's play in the final third. Why are we struggling to put teams like Crystal Palace to bed? You know, scratching a 1-0 win very late in the game. We're also going to be looking at Lukaku and what is the best way to play with this guy? Like, how can we get the best out of our 100 million pound striker? Okay, so we're going to start looking at the fullback, wingback position, and we're going to obviously preface it by saying we understand that we know that our preferred wingbacks, fullbacks are not currently available. Obviously, Reece James is coming back from injury. He's been out for 2 months. Haven't seen him for quite some time. Ben Chilwell is out with a long-term injury. He won't be back anytime soon. Marcus Alonso overworked, probably needed a bit of a break. And Azpilicueta probably in a similar boat, just overworked and needed a bit of a break, a bit of jet lag probably settling in him as well. And Callum Hudson-Odoi probably falling in the same boat. But we ended up going with Malang Sarr as a left back, and then we played Christensen at right back. And for me, I mean, I've always said this, like players will always act according to their type. And if you play players in positions where they're uncomfortable, what their natural instincts will lead them to do is just play football the way they're accustomed to playing. So you're going to see the likes of Christensen and Malang Sarr play the wingback or the fullback role as a center back would play. You know, they're not looking to make any risky passes. They're not looking to like really, overlap, get into the dangerous areas like we saw, with Chilwell and Reece James. They're basically going to play very, very safe. And the problem with all of that is that Chelsea just had no support in wide areas whatsoever. Malang Sarr was not looking to overlap with Kai Havertz, and vice versa. There was 1 and 2 opportunities where you saw Christensen overlap with Ziyech, but that was in the latter stages of the game. It wasn't really the intent or the intentions for him to do that. He was being very, very safe and making sure that we didn't get countered by obviously the likes of Zaha on that left flank for Crystal Palace. And rightfully so, I get it. Understand that we have to be cognizant of teams on the break and whatnot, but when we're really a possession-based team and we're not committing enough bodies forward to affect that final third, this is the end product you get. This is the results of not being, brave enough in our attack and not making the right sort of decisions in the final third that lead to creating goal-scoring opportunities. I mean, our most attacking, threatening player of the entire game was Hakim Ziyech, obviously the match winner. And he was basically camped out on that right flank, looking to swing in crosses and putting a bunch of telling balls that should have been attacked. But the fact that Chelsea don't have a lot of blocks presence, you had the likes of only Pulisic, Lukaku and Havertz usually trying to get on the end of those. And when you play a low block defense who have 6, 7, 8 guys in the box, it's very hard for Chelsea to attack with 3 attackers attacking the ball and Ziyech being so far on the right flank trying to swing in crosses, because it's basically just playing into the hands of the defense because they have the numerical advantage to, outwit the likes of Lukaku, Havertz, and Pulisic. And we saw that again and again and again in the game against Crystal Palace. And I think that the remedy to that is, and you see it with a lot of different teams in Europe right now, in particular the likes of Man City and Liverpool, is they have fullbacks that get forward and are their creative conduits. They're the guys that are getting up the field, up and down the pitch, and putting in those balls so that the likes of Hakim Ziyech, in our case, the likes of Havertz, the likes of Pulisic, the likes of Mount, the likes of, Lukaku, the likes of Kovacic can get into the box and attack those crosses and whatnot. You look at Man City, and this is a perfect example. Like here, you can see that obviously the Spurs are playing a 6-3-1. They're up 1-0 at this point, so they're looking to be really, really defensive. And what does Pep do to counteract that? He puts more players in the box. They have like 5 and 6 players in the box at a time sometimes. And this one actually led to the goal for Gundogan. But as I said, like if you're going to have a low block defense, you have to have presence in the box to match that. You can't expect players like Lukaku, who's not necessarily technically sound enough to stitch together attacking moves. He's not really a dribbler of any sort, to be able to navigate that sort of minefield of defenders and expect to be successful. You might get lucky 1 or 2 times when you be able to play like a 1-2 and get in behind, but every now and then is not enough to win football games. You have to be consistently putting in performances, consistently putting in chances to create goal scoring opportunities, the likes of Man City and Liverpool always do. And the problem that we're facing right now, and in this game, is the fact that our wing backs, our full backs, were just not offensive enough to create enough pressure inside that box to really put them to the sword. And this has been a problem that's been plaguing Chelsea for quite some time right now, since we lost the likes of Reece James, since we lost the likes of Ben Chilwell as well. I would say actually the Ben Chilwell one was more telling, just because he provided something that we just cannot replace on that right flank. I mean, you can probably say the same thing about Reece James on the right, but he's only been out for 2 months, whereas Chilwell's been out for quite some time right now, and we're basically just threadbare on that left. The likes of Malang Sarr's playing there now, and nobody would have ever thought that he would even be in the squad at the beginning of the year. I mean, it's that, but it's also the fact that our attacking intent, our ability to get bodies forward and be brave in the final third is hindering our ability to score goals. That, and the fact that we continuously play players out of position. We're just now seeing the return to form of Hakim Ziyech. I've been banging on about it for the longest time, that he is an out-and-out winger. And when you play him, those inside number 10 roles and whatnot, he just gets lost. He doesn't really find his game. He's rushed a lot of the times. When you give him time on space on the right flank, for instance, to pick passes and whatnot, you can see his quality all the time. He's that good. But the problem is the system doesn't necessarily, when we play our 3-back system, it doesn't necessarily suit his skill set. And, we went to a 4-back setup for this particular game, and we saw him come to life again. It's no different than what we see in the last few games, to be honest with you. Whenever we play with 4 at the back, it seems like Hakim Ziyech seems to be in his more natural role, and you're seeing the best football out of him. You can't look for that sort of diversity and fluidity and, versatility in young players. Not everyone possesses it. You can't always coax a lamb to behave as a lion, or a lion to behave as a lamb. You expect these players to find their roles in the football that they're most comfortable in, and when they're out of form, they need to return back to the role that makes them most comfortable, and then you start variating where you want to see them on the pitch. But I'm going to leave it there. I really do think that the problem with yesterday's game was just the fact that we didn't play with natural width. We had 2 center backs playing as fullbacks, and in the modern game, if you're not getting that thrust forward from your fullbacks, you're basically dead in the water. You're basically trying to attack with 3 or 4 players, and that's just not enough when teams are playing with a low block. Now, for the next portion of this video, we're going to be looking at basically the 2 next topics all roll into one. We're going to be looking at Lukaku, and we're going to be looking at Chelsea's play in the final third, and why there's no congruence between the two. Why can't Chelsea execute in the final third, and why is Lukaku getting so lost in the offense? 7 touches is just abysmal when you think about when you're playing for a striker that's 97 million pounds. You expect him to have more involvement in the final third. You expect him to have more touches, that's for damn sure, and you expect him to be more of an influence. It's just we're void of all of that right now, and I think a lot of it just comes down to a style of play that we're playing right now. Obviously, I've been banging on about this since the inception, since we bought Lukaku. I never thought he was the right purchase, but I always thought that if you're going to bring in a player like that, you have to play to his strengths. You have to play to his strengths. It makes absolutely no sense to try and bring in somebody that is not very technically sound to play, technical, possession-based football. So there had to have been a philosophical change when we're thinking about bringing Lukaku to the club. That's first and foremost. You're not going to be able to give him the technical ability to be, a Lewandowski overnight, or, whoever else we're looking at strikers. Like, that's just not realistic. He's not that type of player. I've been saying from time that Lukaku's strengths is he loves to run at defenses. He needs time, space, and to use his physicality and his pace to, threaten teams. But in order to be effective at that, he needs space. But the problem we're seeing right now is because we're such a possession-based team and we press so high up the pitch, it doesn't really give a whole lot of room for Lukaku to operate in. When you think about what you're asking of him, like these tight spaces and whatnot, like defenders all around him, 2 defenders at a time sometimes, and then maybe a shield in front of him as well. That's not Lukaku's strength. Lukaku is not a technical striker playing his back to goal, a guy that's going to be able to dribble, use his turn of pace to get in behind and whatnot. He's not that type of striker. He's a bullish striker that loves to be running at defenders with the ball at his feet. He's a bullish defender that likes to be on the counter, using space and time to make the decisions about what's the best options. And more often than not, he usually does pick the right one, to be honest. He is an intelligent enough striker to pick the right options when they are available to them. Whether or not the execution is always there is something else we can always debate. But without question, when you see him turn and get into space, he usually makes the right passes, or he takes a shot, or he makes a good decision on the ball. And right now, when we're playing this, high press, high line, attacking setup, he just does not fit in that. He's not technically sound enough to do that. And I think that permeates throughout the squad. We have a bunch of players that don't fit the style of football that we're playing right now. You think about our midfielders, like in order to really be, an efficient attacking outfit, we need to have midfielders or wingbacks that can actually deliver the ball, play those through balls, be consistently, delivering, quality servicing into the likes of the Havertzes and the Lukakus and whatnot. And right now we're just not getting that. We don't get it from the likes of Conte, Kovacic, and Jorginho on a consistent basis. And with the likes of Chilwell and Reece James being out due to long-term injuries, we're certainly not getting it from Azpilicueta and Alonso and Malang Sarr or Christensen, as we saw today. So I think that a lot of what we're seeing right now is that our failure to break down teams in the final third come down to personnel, but also trying to fit like square pegs in round holes. For me, the solution is we need to drop our line back a little bit further to create more space for those guys to get in behind. Right now our line is too high and the pitch is just too condensed for those guys to have any real impact on the game, because they just, they're not comfortable enough with the ball at the feet to make that dribbling move or to, use their intuition to like play somebody in. It's just not their game. So if we drop the line back a little bit more, it'll force the defense to come a little bit more, and it give them more space to get in behind, and give them more space to, get in transitional positions where they're running at the defense as well. I mean, that's what it is for me in a nutshell. If we're trying to be effective and, score goals and play to the strengths of Lukaku, then his strength is definitely, getting on the counter in transition and finding him early so he can make quick decisions on the ball. The system that we have right now is just not tailor-made for him. And of course, we saw all the footage from Match of the Day. I'm sure everyone saw that as well. And they basically outlined it perfectly. We're not playing to his strengths. And the opportunities that are presented where we can't actually play to his strengths, the players that are on the ball just don't recognize them quickly enough, and the opportunities are gone. We don't have guys that make those risky passes. We don't have guys that think the game as a playmaker would, as somebody that's trying to fashion the ball to our striker. We just don't have players that play that way. With the only one that comes close to it is Hakim Ziyech, and with him being on that right flank, most of what you're going to get from him is crosses into the box that are pretty much pinpoint. And you would like to see Lukaku win an aerial duel every once in a while to score goals and whatnot, but that is the only one guy that is looking to create. Everyone else is either it seems like everyone else is trying to play for themselves and not really getting their head up to look what's available to them, who's in better positions. I'm speaking to the likes of Kai Havertz. I'm speaking to the likes of Pulisic. Mason Mount sometimes does it, but it's not consistent enough and it's not accurate enough when he does have that opportunity. Same thing for Callum Hudson-Odoi. We need better quality in those areas, those attacking areas, if we're going to play the style that we're going to play right now. And right now, the recognition's not there. I would say that the quality's not there. And you look even further back in the pitch, you look the likes of Jorginho, Kovacic, and Conte, we're not getting any thrust from any of those guys. As much as they are solid in keeping possession and regaining possession and thrusting forward and getting us on the front foot. Once we get into that final third, pretty much every one of them is useless. They don't offer enough attacking potency to affect the game in the final third. Absolutely none of them. Right? Teams can just cheat off of our midfield and just key in on the 3 or 4 attackers that we have on the pitch, because they know that the guys that we have in behind them don't provide any sort of goal-scoring threat whatsoever. So that's the problem that we're facing right now. We're putting so much pressure on our 3 attackers, our 4 attackers sometimes, and we're not getting the width from our wing backs or our full backs, and we're not getting the true attacking support from our central midfielders. So, so much of the burden now is falling on a 22-year-old Kai Havertz, a Lukaku who does not work well in tight spaces and needs to be playing on the counter in transition and likes to be running at guys, a Pulisic who, for as good as he is as a dribbler, if he dribbles 1 and 2 guys, there's another 2 guys that he has to dribble through again, and at some point the defense is just going to collapse on him. So he's struggling with that. Same with Callum Hudson-Odoi, who doesn't really take enough chances in the final third for my liking, but it's the same thing. Even if he does beat 1, he's got another 2 to beat before he can get in a good goal scoring position. So I think that is the culmination of the problems that we're seeing on the pitch right now. It's not just the fact that Lukaku is been a complete eyesore on the pitch, just a complete mismatch in terms of what we're trying to do as a team versus what he likes to do. It's more than that. It's the fact that we don't have the wingbacks that are looking to be our attacking outlets, our conduits that would allow for our attackers to spend more time in getting to those dangerous areas. But we're also not getting that thrust from that midfield that would allow for teams to account for them. If we had I hate to say it, but if we had somebody like Pogba in our midfield right now, when he played a midfield 3, if somebody like Ruben Loftus-Cheek would actually step up and find his game again, I guarantee you our attacking potency would be so much more threatening, because you'd have somebody to think about and a deeper position who can get into those areas and finish. We just don't have that right now, and I think that's what's plaguing this team right now. But I do think I'm going to wrap it up there. A bit of a ramble, guys, but I'm hoping you guys understand what I'm saying about this thing. Chelsea just need to have more presence in that final third, more attacking intent to really, really affect these games. I mean, this game against Crystal Palace was a perfect example. When Ziyech is out on the right flank and he's supposed to be one of your attackers, and you don't have enough box presence to counteract the 5 and 6 players that they have in the box to ward off the threat of Lukaku, Havertz, and Pulisic, then the game speaks for itself. When you don't have fullbacks that can get forward, telling balls or be threatening to attract defenders towards them to create space for others, then this is what you get. And we move. It's unfortunate that injuries have struck this team in the way it has, and we don't have the depth to accommodate for the style of football that we want to play. But ultimately, we still have to find a different way of playing football. We have to be able to utilize Lukaku. We have to be able to utilize the strengths of this team effectively. And when we don't have the likes of Reece James and Chilwell, what is the plan B? What are we looking to do? Obviously we changed to the back 4, and that's worked well to help Ziyech find his game. And fits and starts maybe Pulisic well. He's looked good when he's come on and whatnot, but ultimately we have to start fashioning our moves, our attacking intent around Lukaku. And for me, that starts with just dropping the block a little bit deeper, giving him a little bit more space and time to make decisions on the ball, giving him more time to get in behind and whatnot. But I mean, it doesn't just end there. This guy's still not doing the bare minimums. We're talking about just holding up the ball effectively. Being able to do that. being able to like win an aerial duel once every 7 opportunities. Like, he's not even doing that. Like, so the very basics of being a striker in the Premier League, he's not very adept at it right now. And I'm not going to say that it's not irreparable. Like, it's not something that we can't fix. But as of right now, we're into February. We're not seeing any semblance of an attack that resembles any sort of a link with what Lukaku likes to do. But I digress. We're going to move on. We have Lille. We have Lille in the Champions League, and this is going to be a massive fixture. There's no sleeping on them. I think that they have a dangerous team, and with the way we're playing right now, the fine margins that we're riding, the fact that we're not putting teams to bed, the fact that like we're scraping games against Palmeiras, Al Hilal, or I can't remember the name, I can't pronounce it, Crystal Palace. A Lille team would give us more problems than a few of those teams there. And, obviously the Canadian Jonathan David is in great form right now. And, I feel like he carries a threat that Chelsea have to be cognizant of. And I'm sure Tuchel understands that as well. And, but I think ultimately it's just going to come down to Chelsea just playing without a handbrake on, being less pragmatic when we're trying to, hurt teams and whatnot, being a little bit more direct, being a little bit more aggressive in our attacking approach, and just taking more risk. I understand that, like, the hallmark of this team the last year and a bit has been the fact that we defend really, really well, but we're not necessarily doing that anymore. We don't have the players to defend the way we have, but we definitely have the attackers to hurt teams in the final third if we play to their strengths and we give them more. We give more to that end of the pitch. But I'm not the one making the decisions on that. I think Tuchel knows the squad best, and ultimately he's going to be the one that decides how this team is going to play moving forward. And he hasn't been wrong too many times, to be honest. 4 finals, 3 cups. So far be it for me to argue with that, with the success that he's had. But I mean, something has to change, because that £97 million striker that we have right now isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And in order to get the best out of him, we have to play to his strengths as well sometimes. But guys, I'm going to leave it there. You know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high, and up the Chelsea.